Have you ever wondered what it's like to live on Costa del Sol? Why so many people move to Spain? And what it really takes to buy a property here? I address the most frequently asked questions I get as a real estate agent on the southern coast. Can I live in Spain on a non-European passport? Short answer is yes, but it'll depend on which country you're from. Whether you're from the Schengen countries, further overseas, it's the duration that you're going to be looking at and how long you can stay. Staying anywhere over 6 months, you're going to be looking at getting visas, whether that's the golden visa, non-lucrative visa if you're not planning to work, a digital nomad visa. It's really durations and then also taxation. Of course, if you stay here for longer periods of time, Spain will consider you as their tax resident and they will want to tax you on anything that they can tax you on. Meanwhile, where you're fiscal resident in other countries, where you perhaps resided previously, they'll also consider you a tax resident. So it's really a question that's best suited for tax advisors, and they'll be able to assist very specific cases, case by case, essentially. How does Costa del Sol compare to other regions in Spain for expats? Having lived all around Spain, in places such as Madrid, Seville, Barcelona, Malaga city itself, it really depends on what your preferences are. It really, what is it that you're looking for is the question you need to ask yourself. If it's this bustling, big city life, perhaps Madrid and Barcelona are places that are better suited. However, you might have a little bit more language barriers in such places because there is, a bigger Spanish population. Costa del Sol is very international. You'd struggle to find somebody that doesn't speak English, especially if you're just going out, if you're ordering at a restaurant, if you're buying groceries, you will be able to get around in English. What types of transportation options are available? So you have trains, you of course have public buses. Important to note that Costa del Sol isn't like a major city where essentially the bus lines will go in either direction. It's really just west or east along the coast. And then occasionally they'll go up through urbanizations, but that's a very rare case. So transport along the coast is simple, but you're mostly going to be looking at buses. You also have Ubers, taxis, of course, Bolts, which are another way of transportation. These generally aren't extremely expensive. What's the process of opening a bank account as a non-resident? The process is almost the same as a resident. First of all, you need to choose the bank and then provide the necessary documentation. Some banks are better, some banks are worse, some banks will charge you more, some banks won't. If you're buying a property, this is not something that I would do personally. I would leave this to the lawyer, as that's part of their duties. If you're buying a property, the lawyers will help you get all the necessary documentation and take the necessary steps from A to Z in buying that property. So oftentimes when I have clients that are trying to be very proactive, saying I'm going to open a bank early on, it's not really necessary. It's very bureaucratic, and just let the lawyers do that with power of attorney if they're able to, or come back at a later stage and use the one that you've selected. What types of healthcare options are available in Spain? To break it down, let's put them in two categories. You'll have the private sector, which you'll have a lot of different hospitals and insurance companies to choose from, which work great. Or you have the public sector, which is free if you're paying your taxes. They're very good doctors. Studying to become a doctor in Spain is not easy. In fact, their Spanish doctors are very well regarded in other countries, and it's a system that really works. However, of course, it is slower than going through private healthcare. How accessible are language learning resources locally? There are tons of language schools scattered all around the coast and Spain. Costa del Sol, I keep saying, it's not the best place to learn Spanish because even if you speak to somebody in Spanish, they most likely will respond to you in English. However, immersion is probably the best way forward. If you can, do day trips, go to Malaga city, go to Ronda, assist that with, Duolingo, for example, which is a great app for learning new languages. And it really depends on how much time you spend. That's how quickly you're going to learn it. How safe is Costa del Sol and what are the crime rates like? Can't speak about the crime rates, but I can say that Costa del Sol in Spain is ranked as one of the safer countries in the world in terms of overall. So this would be including natural disasters, robbery, burglaries, violent crime and gang violence. Of course, where there is money, there is crime, whether that's prostitution or drugs or anything like that, but it depends what we're comparing with, really. And it really does rank very high up in terms of being a safe country to live and retire in. How does the local job market look for expats? As an expat, and because the coast really caters to expats, you'll be able to find work. It really depends. I mean, this is a holiday destination, so maybe not as many office jobs as we're used to in larger cities. Most of my clients end up thinking, okay, well, there's a gap in this market and I can bring this kind of business, because it's very easy to set up businesses here, and it shouldn't be very expensive either. Otherwise, of course, you can always land a job in hospitality, but it really depends. Have a look. Facebook is a great way to kind of understand what the job market is looking like, or there's apps for finding specific types of jobs, or look around on LinkedIn and companies like the one you're looking for in the Malaga or Marbella regions. What are the best areas to live in Costa del Sol for expats? Again, it really depends. If you're a golfer, there are certain areas that are going to be way better for you. If you are all about luxury and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and yachts, well then, you have to end up in Marbella or the Golden Mile. If you want a more peaceful kind of living, you have areas such as Mijas and Estepona or Duquesa and Casares. If you want more privacy, for example, you might look into Sotogrande. Speaking to your agent, really giving him the vision of what you want and your lifestyle and your preferences, you're gonna find the right area on the coast that just fits what you're looking for. Where can I find handyman and workers? There's an incredible demand and supply of handyman and workers for renovation projects, or you name it, around Costa del Sol, because there's a lot of construction. You'll have very niche companies, maybe specializing in specific types of clients or tiling or languages. I normally look at a website called Habitissimo. I'll write that later in the description. You basically put in your details, what kind of service you're looking for, and they'll call you. So unlike other parts in the world where it's really hard to find a handyman for a job, you should be able to get someone on the day and fix it. It just depends, which service you're looking at. What's the difference between listing and buyer's agents? Listing agents are essentially an agency or an agent specializing in selling properties. They'll manage a portfolio or a specific area or a specific type of property, and they're a great way to get that exposure for the property you're trying to sell. Now, listing agents can also take on buyers and perhaps try to sell their portfolio or help them find other types of properties. A buyer's agent is really required to specialize in understanding the needs of his buyer and selecting from all of the available properties, whether that's new builds or Spanish homes or hotels or restaurants that are for sale, and really fine-tuning the search so that his buyer can get a look at all of the offerings and find the right one for them. A buyer's agent can also, of course, have listings, but it's crucial that you understand that there is a slight difference between listing and buyer's agents and what kind of agent you're working with. How can I meet other expats or locals when moving to Costa del Sol? Apart from Facebook and local groups, which there's a lot of. Let's say you've moved to Mijas, there's a lot of groups specializing in Mijas, and you're just typing that word out on Facebook will bring them all up. Of course, the cities sometimes have holidays or events which they'll create, but also your community of homeowners might be the first place to look. Language schools, activities, sports, all these things, it'd be essentially the same as meeting in any other country. What you can think is that you have a lot of like-minded people, such as yourselves watching this video, that are looking into moving to Costa del Sol or Spain. So you'll have something in common with the other people already. Are there any restrictions on owning pets in Costa del Sol? No, unless they're not banned and exotic animals such as crocodiles or tigers. I'm assuming we're speaking about cats and dogs and parrots. There shouldn't be any restrictions. How does Costa del Sol cater to retirees compared to other regions in Spain? Retiring in Costa del Sol, and especially in southern Spain as a general, is where you get the most sun. It's also where you have a lot of golf courses. That's something that you might pick up when you're retiring if you haven't already. It is a different type of lifestyle. It is obviously a different type of lifestyle than living in a large city such as Madrid. But it's to each and everyone to decide how they want to spend their retiring days. What are the most family-friendly areas to live in Costa del Sol? I wouldn't say there's one specific area that is more or less family-friendly. There are activities for families and children all around the coast, from water parks to football activities or beach volleyball, you name it. Just find the right area for your family and then you will have enough things to do around you. And if it's a little bit further, well, you'll have to drive a little bit, but think of it as a holiday destination for the majority of people that are buying here. You're not really going to be bored. Of course, if you're buying in Malaga city, for example, or in larger cities such as Barcelona and Madrid, you will have more things to your immediate, left or right on the street, because it's just very dense. But you're not going to be short of these things in Costa del Sol either. Are there any modern co-working spaces or facilities for remote workers? Most new builds actually come with a co-working space, and this is because of the current trends, and people are able to work from home more and more and more. There are more remote workers, there are more young entrepreneurs starting up businesses, and the usual office setting isn't the current trend anymore. So new developments really almost have that as a standard. You will have some sort of co-working space. Apart from that, of course, there are larger companies that offer this kind of service. So for Marbella, you have the Pool, for example, which is a great place that you can pay by day or pay by month to have this kind of communal workspace. Or you have MySpace, which is a similar type of product, and there are countless of them in Malaga as well. So you're not going to be short of office space. It will depend on the price that you're willing to pay. How easy is it to find organic or specialty groceries in Costa del Sol? They're everywhere, from Corte Inglés, which would have a gourmet section where you can get wines from all over the world, or Swedish caviar. We have a type of nationality that buys here that does want to be able to get the goods that they're used to in other countries, or the organic trend is also very, very popular. You have new places popping up such as Forum in Marbella, which has these amazing organic food markets or cafes or bistros. So you really will not have too much trouble finding those here. Are there any outdoor markets worth visiting? Yes, there's an outdoor market or farmer's market every day somewhere along the coast. So for example, on Saturdays you'll find it in Puerto Banús or Nueva Andalucía. On Tuesdays it's in San Pedro Alcántara. On Sundays it's somewhere else. So there is a local website which I'll link in the description, which can tell you when that market is coming to the city nearest to you. What you can find on this market is anywhere from fruits to jewelry, to handmade goods, to clothes, to bags, essentially everything except meat and fish. How do property owners in Costa del Sol handle water restrictions during the droughts? As of the last year, Spain and the rest of Europe, in fact, as far up as Sweden, has had a more than a usual drought. Now, some areas in Costa del Sol and some specific cities have actually had to implement water restrictions, which is the right thing to do, of course. So maybe that would have been decreased water pressure between midnight and 6 o'clock in the morning, not being able to refill the pools. Of course, the hotel industry did have to continue, so those pools were always filled up. And golf courses didn't get any less green than they were. So there are measures that the government implements, but really what we need to be doing here is to continue looking into desalination plants and making sure that the water runoff from when it actually does rain gets stored more properly than just runs into the sea. What is the cost of private schooling compared to public schools in Costa del Sol? Public schools are free in Costa del Sol, so free in the terms of they're included in the taxes. Private schools, depending, can range you somewhere from in the hundreds of euros per month to tens of thousands. It really depends on which schools you choose, what specialities they have, and where they're located. We have some of the best schools that Spain offers in Costa del Sol, including one, for example, in Soto Grande, which I've had several clients that have their children there, and it's extremely, extremely good. How does Costa del Sol's infrastructure support electric vehicles? There's not a lot of fast chargers yet, as in more developed countries or northern countries rather. Of course, your garage will have a pre-installation for an electric charger, which you can choose the brand and model of to fast charge. And then using these apps, such as the Tesla app or any other apps, will give you the charges in your local vicinity. Most supermarkets or malls will have electric charging ports. So there are options, and there's plenty of them, but it's not as many as in the northern European countries. Are there any cycling or running routes in Costa del Sol? Yes, there's a lot of running routes. You can find these through apps, through route apps, or just local Facebook groups or friends. And there are cycling routes as well. Important to note that cycling is allowed on highways and on public roads. So you will see a lot of cyclists sharing the road with cars, preparing for their races. How do I register for local town services like waste collection or municipal updates? When you buy a property in Spain, your lawyer will set you up for this. I mean, it's a necessity that you pay for these services as well. So your lawyer will help you, or the government or the town hall will find you and they'll bill you. Are there any good options for senior care or assisted living in Costa del Sol? Yes, there are quite a few companies that specialize in this, and there's a lot of new residential buildings being brought up, or residential, let's call them hotels, senior living hotels, which have popped up in the last few years, as it's a concept that is really taking off here. And a lot of people are choosing, sunnier coasts like the southern Spain to retire. There's a lot to look through. So just decide on pricing and what amenities they offer and choose the right one for you. Can I find English-speaking doctors or specialists in Costa del Sol? Yes, you can. The public sector perhaps isn't the best one for this. However, English is spoken in southern Spain, so your doctor will probably be able to understand you to a certain degree. The private sector is really where you want to go. You will be able to access a doctor that perfectly communicates in English to fully understand your needs. Are there any major hospitals or medical centers in Costa del Sol? You've got a lot of hospitals, and you have larger ones like the Costa del Sol hospital itself. Then you have the private sector, which builds their own hospitals. So there's a lot of access to them. You will have a hospital within the nearest 5 kilometers of you if you're relatively close to the coast. How do I transfer my driver's license to a Spanish license? It's not as straightforward as it might seem. Most people will take the advantage of a solicitor or a lawyer to help expedite the process. Of course, you'll have to provide documents and not necessarily retake the test, depending on which country you're from. But really, I would leave this to your solicitor or lawyer and pay the little bit that it takes, because it's very, very bureaucratic. And even if you fully understand the Spanish language, because all this will be done in Spanish, it's still a little bit of a process. Are there any options for private chefs or catering services in Costa del Sol? Yes, as this is a holidays destination, a lot of people have their weddings here or birthday parties. There are a lot of catering companies or private chefs. Personally, I know quite a few chefs that would love the opportunity to be somebody's private chef. So it's a lot of them aspire to something like this. And then you have catering companies, which there's a lot of them to choose from. So it's just finding the budget and then selecting a company that feels right, that does have good reviews and a good track record, and making sure that that special event or occasion or whatever it is you're planning is well taken care of by a professional. How does Costa del Sol cater to wellness, like yoga retreats or spa resorts? There are a lot of spa resorts. It can be as simple as a hotel spa resort, which offers these services. It can be whole communities that have a spa or a resort feel, rather, or it can be whole areas which are catering to clients in a resort manner. Now, there are also, of course, groups and events and activities such as yoga and Pilates by the beach, and or there, of course, the gym community, which also have a very active lifestyle. So it is one of these things that happens a lot here because it's sunny almost over 320 days a year. Most of the activities are outdoor, so no matter where you end up, you will see people exercising in one way or another. So, can you picture yourself on Costa del Sol? Are there any questions that I didn't cover? Feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll be happy to help.